The late 21st century was humanity's darkest time. Earth was dying. The climate had changed too much, and resources were running out. People struggled to survive as governments collapsed. Then the aliens came. They called themselves the Vexari. Their massive ships appeared in the skies without warning, hovering over major cities. At first, they seemed friendly. They offered technology and solutions to Earth's problems. Many humans welcomed them with hope. Do-hyun Park didn't trust them. As one of the world's leading engineers, he had been working on generation ships, massive spacecraft designed to carry humans to distant stars. We should complete the ships, he warned the United Nations Council. Just in case. Few listened. The Vexari provided clean energy and advanced medicine. They helped restore failing ecosystems. For 6 months, they seemed like saviors. Then everything changed. On a cold autumn morning, the Vexari attacked. Their weapons easily overwhelmed Earth's military forces. Cities fell within hours. The Vexari announced their true intention. Earth would become their new colony, and humans would serve them. Do-hyun watched the news broadcasts from his underground facility in the Korean mountains. The generation ship program had continued in secret, funded by a coalition of private companies and forward-thinking nations. 5 massive ships were nearly complete, hidden in remote locations around the world. We need to launch now, Do-hyun told his team. We won't get another chance. His partner, Joo Kim, coordinated the evacuation plans. As a biologist specializing in closed ecosystems, she had designed the ship's sustainable food production systems. We can only take 100,000 people per ship, she said, her voice heavy with the impossible math. Billions would be left behind. The Vexari discovered the ships. They sent forces to destroy them. The generation ship Odysseus, hidden beneath the Pacific Ocean, was the first to launch. As it rose from the water, Vexari fighters attacked. The ship's shields, designed for cosmic radiation, barely held against the alien weapons. We're losing power to sectors 3 and 4, shouted Taewoo, the ship's chief engineer. Do-hyun raced through the corridors, helping seal breaches and reroute power. Joo worked to stabilize the damaged hydroponic systems that would feed the passengers during their long journey. The Odysseus escaped Earth's atmosphere with 19,000 people aboard, far fewer than planned. Reports came in that 2 other ships had been destroyed before launching. The remaining 2, Prometheus and Horizon, managed to break free from Earth's gravity well. From the observation deck, Do-hyun watched Earth grow smaller. Vexari ships pursued them, but turned back after they passed Mars. The aliens seemed confident that the fragile human vessels wouldn't survive the journey between stars. They think we're going to die out here, Do-hyun said. Joo stood beside him, her hand on her slightly swollen belly. She was 4 months pregnant. Then we'll prove them wrong. Life aboard the Odysseus was hard. The ship had been designed for 5 times as many people, but damage from the escape meant many sections were uninhabitable. Food was strictly rationed. The water recycling systems constantly broke down. Depression and suicide became serious problems. Do-hyun established the Memory Keepers, people tasked with preserving knowledge of Earth and recording everything about the Vexari invasion. One day we'll return, he told them. Our descendants need to know what happened and why. 6 months into the journey, Joo gave birth to their daughter, Yeonji, the first child born in interstellar space. Many saw her birth as a powerful symbol of hope. More children followed. A new generation who would never know Earth except through stories. Taewoo led the effort to repair the ship's damaged systems. With limited materials, they had to be creative. When the main navigation computer failed, they built a replacement using parts from entertainment systems. When a meteoroid punctured the outer hull, they sealed it with a new material made from processed waste. Communication with the other ships became more difficult as they drifted apart, following slightly different courses to Ta Ceti, the nearest star with potentially habitable planets. Their last message from the Prometheus reported a serious oxygen recycler failure. The Horizon's final transmission simply said, "We endure." 2 years into the journey, they faced their worst crisis. A solar flare from a red dwarf star. They were passing damaged the Odysseus's main power systems. Life support began to fail. The temperature dropped. Oxygen levels decreased. "We have 12 hours before the levels become fatal," Ju reported, clutching 3-year-old Yunji to her chest. Do-hyun led a desperate repair mission. They had to go outside the ship, exposed to deadly radiation. 5 engineers volunteered. Working in the vacuum, they rerouted power through backup systems that hadn't been completed before the hasty launch. Only 3 returned alive. The years passed. Children grew up in the metal corridors, never feeling wind on their faces or solid ground beneath their feet. They learned Earth's history, studied the Vexari, and trained for the day they might return. Do-hyun and Ju grew old watching over the community they had saved. They wouldn't live to see their new home. The journey would take generations. In the ship's 40th year, their long-range sensors detected a planet orbiting Ta Ceti that showed signs of being habitable. Excitement spread through the ship, but Do-hyun urged caution. "We need to be certain before we commit," he said. At 78, his once black hair had turned white, but his mind remained sharp. They sent a probe ahead. The data it sent back was promising. An atmosphere they could breathe with some help from filtration masks, gravity slightly stronger than Earth's, and liquid water oceans. There were simple life forms, nothing more complex than Earth's algae and basic multicellular organisms. Ju died before they reached the planet. Do-hyun held her hand as she passed, promising to make sure their grandchildren would establish a safe home. When the Odysseus finally reached orbit around the planet, they would name Nova Terra. Do-hyun was 86. He insisted on joining the first landing party. His daughter Yunji, now a scientist like her mother, helped him into an environmental suit. "Are you sure, Father?" she asked. "The gravity will be hard on you." "I need to touch it," he said simply. "For your mother. For Earth." The shuttle landed on a rocky beach beside a violet ocean. When the door opened, they smelled their first alien air, filled with unfamiliar scents. Do-hyun was the third to step onto the surface. His legs trembled under the stronger gravity, but he refused help. He knelt with difficulty and placed his hand on the ground, feeling the rough alien soil. From his pocket, he took a small container. Inside was a seed, one of the few Earth plant specimens they had managed to preserve through the journey. With trembling fingers, he dug a small hole and planted it. "This is not the end," he told the gathered colonists. "This is just a beginning. We will build here, we will grow strong here, but we will never forget where we came from. 3,000 years from now, our descendants will return to Earth. They will free our people. They will reclaim our home." He looked up at the alien sky, imagining Earth's sun as just another distant star. "We promise." 300 years after landing on Nova Terra, humans had changed. The colony that began with less than 20,000 survivors had grown to over 5 million people spread across 3 continents. The higher gravity of their new world had made them stronger. The slightly higher oxygen levels had improved their endurance. Careful genetic adjustments had helped them adapt to the local environment. Taeyong-Li stood on the cliff overlooking New Seoul, the largest human settlement on Nova Terra. Unlike Earth's Seoul, destroyed by the Vexari centuries ago, this city was built with purpose and planning. The buildings curved with the landscape, and green spaces filled every district. Solar collectors gleamed on every roof, capturing the energy of Ta Ceti, their new sun. At 32 years old, Taeyong was younger than most ship captains, but his skills were exceptional. He had been chosen to command the Vengeance, the first true interstellar vessel, built since the generation ships that brought humans to Nova Terra. Unlike those massive arcs, the Vengeance was designed for speed and exploration. It would reach other stars within months, not decades. "Are you ready for tomorrow?" asked a voice behind him. Taeyong turned to see his younger brother, Xuno. Though they shared the same parents, they looked quite different. Xuno had been born with genetic adaptations that gave him enhanced night vision and improved lung capacity, useful traits for the survey teams that explored Novaterra's vast cave systems. "Ready as I'll ever be," Taeyong replied. Tomorrow, the Vengeance would depart on its maiden voyage. Its mission: to find other human colonies that might have escaped Earth. The Memory Keeper's records indicated that at least 2 other ships had successfully fled Earth's destruction. That night, at the traditional pre-launch ceremony, Taeyong stood before the memorial flame, a fire that had burned continuously since they landed on Novaterra. The colonists had kept it alive as a symbol of their connection to Earth. "We carry the flame of humanity's past," recited Elder Mayan, her voice strong despite her 90 years. "And the promise of humanity's future." As captain, Taeyong added a small piece of wood to the fire, then received a lantern containing a flame from the memorial. This would travel aboard the Vengeance, connecting their mission to their people's history. The launch the next morning was witnessed by thousands. The Vengeance rose into the sky on pillars of blue flame, the result of antimatter engines that would have seemed like magic to the original colonists. The ship's crew of 50 included the best scientists and soldiers Novaterra could offer. Among them was Minji Kang, the mission's diplomatic officer. Her specialty was understanding different cultures and finding common ground. If they encountered other human colonies or aliens, her skills would be essential. "First jump in 10 seconds, announced the navigation officer as they cleared Novaterra's atmosphere. Taeyong gripped his command chair. The jump drive was Novaterra's greatest technological achievement, a system that could briefly fold space, allowing the ship to travel vast distances instantly. It had never been tested at full scale. The stars blurred, then vanished. For 3 heartbeats, there was nothing visible outside the ship. Then reality snapped back into focus, and a new star system appeared before them. "Jump successful," reported the science officer. "All systems normal." Their first discovery came 2 months into the mission, a small colony on a frozen moon orbiting a gas giant. 3,000 humans lived there, descended from survivors of the Generation ship Horizon. They had developed technology to survive in the harsh conditions, but were struggling with limited resources. "We thought we were alone," said their leader, an older woman named Suni. Her people had physically adapted to their cold world. They were shorter and stockier than the Novaterrans, with thicker skin and higher body temperatures. When Taeyong offered to bring some of them back to Novaterra, Suni surprised him by refusing. "This is our home now," she explained, "but we would welcome trade and knowledge." Minji suggested an exchange program. Some of their scientists could visit Novaterra and return with new technologies that would make life on their frozen moon easier. In return, the Novaterrans would learn about the cold adaptation techniques they had developed. Their next discovery was more surprising: a thriving colony of over 10 million humans on a planet they called Meridian. These people had escaped Earth aboard a ship that wasn't in the Memory Keeper's records. Taeyong and Minji met with Meridian's leadership council in their capital city, a sprawling metropolis built inside a massive crater. The architecture was unlike anything on Novaterra, with buildings that seemed to flow like liquid frozen in time. "We've been waiting for others to find us," said Councillor Jinyoung. "Our founders always believed we weren't the only survivors." The Meridian colonists had taken a different approach to adaptation. Instead of adjusting their environment to suit human needs, they had adjusted themselves. Their genetic engineering was far more advanced than Novaterra's. Many had skin with a purple tint that protected them from Meridian's high ultraviolet radiation. Others had modified respiratory systems to filter the heavy metals in the planet's atmosphere. Most importantly, they had developed quantum computing far beyond what Novaterra had achieved. Their computers could solve problems that would take Novaterran systems centuries. "With your space travel technology and our computing power, we could accomplish amazing things," Jinyoung suggested. Minji recognized the opportunity immediately. "We could begin searching for Earth. The Vengeance continued its mission, discovering 3 more human colonies over the next year. Each had developed unique technologies and adaptations based on their environments. Each carried the memory of Earth and the Vexari invasion. At a meeting on the ship's observation deck, Taeyong and Minji drafted their proposal for what would become the United Human Federation. "We all came from Earth," Taeyong said. "We all share the same enemy. Together, we're stronger than any single colony." Minji added, "With Meridian's quantum computing, we could coordinate communications across dozens of star systems. With the Procyon colony's mineral extraction techniques, we could build more ships." "Good," Hansu replied. "That means we can extend our operational range." Suman nodded, then hesitated before pulling up another file. "I've completed the initial proposal for Operation Remembrance." Hyunsu studied the younger officer. Like many Federation citizens, Suman had grown up with stories of Earth. The Memory Keepers had preserved humanity's history through oral tradition, art, and detailed records. Every child learned about the blue oceans, green forests, and the tragedy of the Vexari invasion. But Suman's connection ran deeper. Her family traced their lineage directly to Yunji Park, the first child born in space after the Exodus. The story went that Yunji had made her father promise that their people would someday return to reclaim Earth. That promise had been passed down through 15 generations of Suman's family. "Tell me about your proposal," Hyunsu said, gesturing for her to continue. "It's time we return to Sol system," Suman began. "Not for conquest. Not yet. But for reconnaissance. We need current intelligence about Earth and the Vexari. Our newest stealth ships can approach without detection. We could learn if there are still humans on Earth, assess Vexari strength, and determine if liberation is possible." Hyunsu was silent for a long moment. The Federation Council had been debating this issue for decades. Some argued that humanity should focus on expansion away from Earth, building a civilization that would eventually outgrow its traumatic origins. Others insisted that they had a duty to the ancestors who were left behind. "The Council will say it's too risky," he finally said. "If the Vexari discovered we not only survived but have grown powerful, they might seek us out. With respect, Admiral, that risk exists whether we go or not," Suman replied. "Sooner or later, the Vexari will expand beyond Sol. When they do, wouldn't it be better if we knew their capabilities? And if there are still humans on Earth?" She didn't need to finish the thought. If humans still survived on Earth after 3 millennia of Vexari rule, the Federation had a moral obligation to help them. 3 months later, Hyunsu presented Suman's revised plan to the Federation Council. The debate was heated, with representatives from the older colonies generally supporting the mission, while newer settlements expressed concerns about provoking a war before they were fully prepared. "We have been preparing for 3,000 years, argued Councillor Minsu from Novaterra, the original colony. "Our ancestors did not escape Earth so that we could forget it. They escaped so that humanity would survive, grow strong, and one day return." In the end, the Council approved a modified version of Operation Remembrance. 3 stealth vessels would be sent to Sol system. Their mission would be strictly observation and intelligence gathering. No contact would be attempted with any humans who might still exist on Earth. Suman volunteered to lead the mission personally, but Hyunsu denied her request. "You're too valuable to the next phase," he told her. "If this reconnaissance succeeds, we'll need you to plan the full operation." The 3 stealth ships departed without ceremony. Using a series of small jumps to avoid detection, they took 6 months to reach the outer edge of Sol system. There, they activated their advanced cloaking technology and began moving slowly toward Earth. What they discovered shocked everyone. The Vexari civilization appeared to be in decline. Where historical records described a thriving alien empire with massive orbital structures and constant space traffic, they found aging space stations and infrequent ship movements. Solar collectors that once enveloped Mercury were half dismantled. The moon bases showed signs of abandonment, and Earth itself was a shadow of the paradise it had once been. Much of the planet appeared gray from orbit, its forests gone, its oceans darker. But there were signs of recovery in some regions, patches of green where nature was slowly reclaiming territory. Most surprising was the discovery of human settlements. Not just survival camps or slave labor centers, but actual cities, built in hidden valleys and remote islands. These humans had survived 3 millennia of occupation. They had preserved their identity despite everything the Vexari had done to erase it. When the reconnaissance ships returned and their data was analyzed, Hyunsu called Sumin to his office. "The Vexari are vulnerable," he said. "They've stripped Earth nearly bare and now they're running out of resources. Their technology hasn't advanced significantly since the invasion." They'd grown complacent. Sumin studied the images of Earth, the devastation and the surprising resilience. "And the humans? Our analysts believe they've developed an organized resistance. We detected encrypted communications between settlements. They're fighting back, even after all this time." Sumin felt a surge of emotion. For 1,500 years, the Federation had grown stronger while keeping the memory of Earth alive. For 3,000 years, the humans on Earth had endured unimaginable hardship while keeping hope alive. "It's time for the next phase," Hyunsu said, his voice firm with resolve. "Prepare a detailed plan for contact with the Earth resistance. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with before we commit the fleet." Sumin nodded, already thinking through the logistics. "I'll need our best special forces operators. People who can blend in if they're seen, and advanced communications equipment that the Vexari can't detect." "You'll have whatever you need," Hyunsu promised. 3,000 years ago, we made a promise to return. It's time we kept it." As Sumin left the Admiral's office, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Generations of her ancestors had lived and died preparing for this moment. Now it would fall to her generation to complete the circle, to bring humanity home. The liberation of Earth was no longer a distant dream. It was becoming a plan. Retrieth's special operations vessel Shadow slipped through space toward Earth, invisible to any Vexari sensors. It was smaller than most Federation ships, designed for stealth rather than combat. Inside, 12 elite soldiers prepared for the most important mission of their lives. Major Ji-hoon Kang checked his equipment one last time. At 42, he was the oldest member of the team and its commander. His face bore the marks of previous missions, a scar along his jawline from a firefight on the frontier world Cygnus, another above his right eye from a training accident. But it was his eyes themselves that revealed the most about him. Calm, focused, missing nothing. "Final briefing in 10 minutes, he told his team. "After that, we sleep. Next time we wake up, we'll be in orbit around humanity's birthplace." The mission was simple in concept but incredibly dangerous in execution. Land on Earth undetected, contact the human resistance, gather intelligence on Vexari defenses, and return safely, all without alerting the aliens that the Federation existed. Commander Sumin Yoon had personally selected each team member. Ji-hoon remembered their final conversation before he left. "If you're compromised, your priority is to prevent the Vexari from learning about the Federation," she had told him, her expression grave. "We cannot risk them finding our worlds before we're ready." "Understood, Commander," Ji-hoon had replied. "But we won't fail." Now, as the Shadow approached Earth using minimal power to avoid detection, the team gathered for their final review. "Our landing zone is here," Ji-hoon said, pointing to a mountainous region on the holographic display. "Sensors show minimal Vexari activity, but signs of human habitation in the valleys. Once planetside, we'll establish a hidden base and begin reconnaissance." Lieutenant Mina Park, the team's communications specialist, spoke up. "How do we make contact with the resistance? We don't even know if they're organized." The reconnaissance probes detected encrypted communications between human settlements, Ji-hoon explained. "We have samples of their code. Your job is to crack it and establish communication, but only when we're certain it's safe." Sergeant Dongwon Han, weapons specialist, checked the charge on his pulse rifle. And if we encounter Vexari, avoid if possible. Eliminate if necessary, but only if they've seen us and could report back. We're not here to start a war. Not yet. After entering Earth orbit, the team boarded a smaller craft for atmospheric entry. Their landing craft used advanced heat dispersal technology to minimize its thermal signature during descent. Even so, the ride was rough as they pushed through Earth's atmosphere. "This air is thicker than the simulation suggested," muttered the pilot, Lieutenant Jao Kim, as he fought to maintain control. They landed at night in a dense forest. As the team stepped onto Earth's soil for the first time, a strange feeling swept through them. A connection to this planet that none had experienced before. The air smelled different from any world they knew, rich with organic compounds unique to Earth. "Spread out. Secure the perimeter," Jihoon ordered, pushing aside his emotional response to focus on the mission. They established a base camp, carefully hidden under the forest canopy. Their equipment, including the landing craft, was covered with adaptive camouflage that mimicked the surrounding environment. For 3 days, they observed from a distance, using drone insects, tiny reconnaissance devices that looked and moved like local flying insects but contained advanced sensors and cameras. On the 4th day, they got their first look at the Vexari. A patrol moved through the forest about 2 kilometers from their position. The aliens were tall, with iridescent skin that shifted colors in the sunlight. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost beautiful, until one casually vaporized a small animal that crossed their path. "They're just like the historical records described," whispered Mina. "But seeing them in person..." Jihoon nodded. "Remember what they did to our ancestors, what they're still doing to the humans here." Their first contact with Earth humans came unexpectedly. A drone detected a hunting party moving carefully through the forest, avoiding Vexari sensor posts with practiced skill. These weren't primitive survivors. They wore simple but effective camouflage and carried handmade weapons alongside what appeared to be repurposed Vexari technology. Jihoon decided to make contact. With Mina and Dongwon, he positioned himself along the hunter's path. When the Earth humans approached, Jihoon stepped into view with his hands raised. The reaction was immediate. The hunters dropped into defensive positions, weapons raised. "We're human," Jihoon said clearly, using the ancient language their linguists had reconstructed from historical records. "Friends." The hunter in front, a woman with dark hair streaked with gray, narrowed her eyes. "You look human, but your clothes are wrong. Your accent is wrong." She gestured with her weapon. "Who are you?" "We come from far away," Jihoon said carefully. "Very far away. We are looking for people who fight against the Vexari." The woman studied them for a long moment. Then she made a series of hand signals to her companions. 2 disappeared into the forest while the others kept their weapons trained on Jihoon's team. "If you're human, you'll come with us," the woman said. "If you're not, you'll never leave these woods." They were taken to an underground settlement hidden beneath what appeared to be ruins. The entrance was concealed by holographic technology that must have been stolen from the Vexari. Inside, hundreds of people lived in a network of tunnels and chambers, illuminated by bioluminescent plants and salvaged power sources. The hunters brought them to a central chamber where an older woman waited. She sat in a chair carved from wood, her posture straight despite her advanced age. Around her neck hung a metal pendant shaped like Earth as seen from space. "I am Yuna," she said, "leader of the Northern Resistance. Now tell me who you really are. No lies." Jihoon considered his options. His orders were to be cautious, to reveal only what was necessary. But looking at these people, humans who had survived millennia of oppression, he made a decision. "We are from the stars," he said, "descendants of those who escaped Earth when the Vexari came. We have returned to see if Earth can be liberated." A murmur ran through the chamber. Yuna's expression remained neutral, but her eyes widened slightly. "The Sky People," she said softly. "The ancestors spoke of you. They said some escaped and would return one day." She stood and approached Ji-hoon, studying his face. For 3,000 years, we've kept the old stories alive. Stories of Earth before the Vexari. Stories of ships that fled to the stars. Most think they're just myths to give people hope. But I always believed. Over the next weeks, Ji-hoon's team learned the true situation on Earth. The Vexari had nearly stripped the planet of its resources. Their once mighty civilization was in decline. Many of their outposts were automated now as their numbers had decreased. The human resistance had grown stronger as the Vexari weakened. They had cells on every continent, communicating through codes and hidden networks. They had preserved knowledge from before the invasion, passing it down through generations. We have waited for so long, Yoonha told Ji-hoon as she showed him their archives, books and digital records hidden from the Vexari. Some wanted to give up hope, but we kept the promise alive. Ji-hoon was deeply moved. What promise? That humanity would endure, that one day we would be free again. When it came time for the team to return to their ship, Ji-hoon gave Yoonha a quantum communicator, a device small enough to hide in her palm, but powerful enough to reach the Federation fleet waiting at the edge of the solar system. Keep this hidden, he told her. When it activates, you'll know we've returned. And next time, we won't come alone. As the shadow broke orbit and began its journey home, Ji-hoon recorded his report for Commander Suman. The Earth resistance is strong and organized, he said. The Vexari are vulnerable. And most importantly, our people never forgot who they are. They'd been waiting for us for 3,000 years. He paused, thinking of Yoonha and her people, fighting against impossible odds for generations, keeping hope alive. It's time to fulfill our oldest promise. It's time to go home. Retrieve the Liberation Fleet gathered at the edge of Sol system, hidden behind the orbit of Pluto. 500 warships, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of human achievement, the culmination of 3,000 years of technological advancement and purpose. Admiral Hyun-soo Choi stood on the bridge of the flagship Reckoning, looking at the tactical display showing their formation. Nearby, Commander Suman checked the final preparations for the assault. They had been planning this moment for decades, but the last 6 months since the reconnaissance team's return had been the most intense. All ships report ready, Admiral, said Suman, her voice steady despite the weight of history pressing down on them. Hyun-soo nodded. He was 157 years old now, kept healthy and strong by medical technology his ancestors could not have imagined. He had dedicated his life to this mission, and now it was finally happening. Send the signal to the resistance, he ordered. Across the bridge, communications officers transmitted the activation code to the quantum communicator Major Ji-hoon had left with Yoonha. On Earth, resistance cells would now be receiving their instructions, the coordinates and timing of the attack. Hyun-soo addressed the fleet, his words carried to every ship. 3,000 years ago, humanity was nearly destroyed. Our ancestors were enslaved or forced to flee their home. Today we return. Today we fulfill the promise made by every generation since the Exodus. He paused, then continued with quiet determination. Our goal is liberation, not destruction. We offer surrender before we open fire. We spare those who stand down. Remember, what makes us human is not just our strength, but our compassion. Even in retribution, we do not become like those who wronged us. The fleet moved toward Earth using a series of microjumps, small space-folding maneuvers that allowed them to bypass Vexari early warning systems. They appeared in Earth orbit simultaneously, surrounding the planet before the Vexari could react. On the Vexari command station orbiting Earth, alarms blared as hundreds of unknown vessels suddenly materialized around the planet. The Vexari Supreme Commander, Kareth, rushed to the control center, his iridescent skin flashing red with alarm. "What are they? Where did they come from?" he demanded. His subordinate's skin pulsed with confusion. "Unknown. Supreme Commander. They appear to be human designs." Impossible, Kareth hissed. The humans are primitive. They have no space capability. Then a transmission came through on all Vexari frequencies, in perfect Vexari language. This is Admiral Hansu Choi of the United Human Federation. Your occupation of Earth ends today. Surrender your forces and withdraw from this system, and you will be spared. Kareth's skin flickered between colors as he processed this impossible development. Humans with this level of technology. A federation. It made no sense. Activate all defense systems, he ordered. Launch the fleet. But the Vexari defenses were outdated, their fleet small and poorly maintained. Centuries of complacency had left them vulnerable. When they opened fire, their weapons barely dented the Federation ship's shields. On Earth's surface, the resistance activated. In coordinated strikes across the planet, they attacked Vexari control centers and communication hubs. Using weapons dropped by Federation stealth ships in the preceding days, they disabled key installations, preventing the aliens from organizing an effective defense. Yunha led the assault on the main Vexari compound in what had once been called Asia. At 72, she was too old to fight on the front lines, but she commanded from a hidden bunker, coordinating attacks across 3 continents using the Federation communication devices. The northern sensors are down, reported a young fighter. The Vexari are blind in sectors 4 through 7. Yunha nodded. Tell all teams to move to Phase 2. The Federation troops will be landing soon. In orbit, the battle was already turning decisively in humanity's favor. The Federation ships used advanced gravity manipulation technology to disable Vexari vessels without destroying them. Only those who continued fighting after being offered surrender were eliminated. Prepare ground forces for deployment, Hansu ordered. Focus on the primary targets we identified. Commander Suman led the first wave of troops to land near what had once been Seoul. Their drop ships bypassed the remaining Vexari defenses using phase shift technology, becoming temporarily out of sync with normal matter as they descended. When they landed, Suman was the first to step onto Earth's soil. Unlike the reconnaissance team, they made no attempt to hide their arrival. Their advanced battle armor gleamed in the sunlight as they formed up and began moving toward the nearest Vexari stronghold. The local resistance fighters emerged from hiding to join them. Many cried openly at the sight of the Federation forces, proof that the ancient stories were true, that humanity had not only survived in the stars, but had returned with power beyond imagination. An old man approached Suman, his eyes wide with wonder. You came back, he whispered. After all this time, you really came back. We promised we would. Suman replied, feeling the connection to these people that transcended the centuries of separation. The battle for Earth lasted 3 days. The Vexari fought fiercely at first, but their leadership began to surrender when they realized the extent of their disadvantage. Some tried to flee the system, only to find their escape routes blocked by Federation ships. At the Vexari Central Command, Supreme Commander Kareth barricaded himself with his elite guards. When Federation forces breached the perimeter, he expected to be killed immediately. Instead, Suman approached him with an offer. Surrender, and your people will be allowed to leave with their lives, she said. Continue fighting, and you will fall. The choice is yours. Kareth's skin cycled through colors as he weighed his options. How? He finally asked. How did humans become this powerful? You were primitive when we arrived. You took our world, but you couldn't take our spirit, Suman replied. You taught us the most important lesson a species can learn, that we must become strong enough that no one can ever do to us what you did. 3 months after the liberation began, Admiral Hansu and Yuna stood together on a hillside overlooking a valley where the restoration work had already started. Federation environmental engineers were using advanced technology to cleanse the soil of toxins left by centuries of Vexari industry. The first new trees had been planted, Earth species preserved in Federation seed banks for 3 millennia. My great-grandmother used to tell me that someday people would come from the stars to help us, Yuma said. I believed her, but many thought it was just a story to give children hope. Hyunsu looked at the sky, now free of Vexari ships for the first time in 3,000 years. We never forgot. Every child in the Federation learns about Earth. Every generation renewed the promise to return. In the valley below, a ceremony was beginning. Federation citizens and Earth humans gathered together. Two branches of humanity separated for 3 millennia, now reunited. At the center of the gathering, a young Federation botanist and an elderly Earth healer carefully planted a special seedling. It was an oak tree, grown from a seed that had been taken from Earth during the Exodus, preserved through the generations, and now returned to its ancestral soil. As the two humans patted the soil around its roots, cheers erupted from the crowd. "It will take centuries to fully restore Earth," Hyunsu said. Yumha smiled. "We're good at waiting, and now we have hope again." As the sun set over the valley, casting golden light on the newly planted fields, humans from Earth and the stars stood together, watching the first day end in a world that was finally free. The 3,000-year circle was complete. Humanity had returned home. Retriclad can make mistakes,